The disruptive innovation economy. We don't know where it's going next or when, but we do know this: it's moving forward, changing everything, including how tomorrow's business will attract and recruit the right talent for the right job. Not only is the business ecosystem changing, but the workforce itself. Clearly, the answer to the future will be a higher solution. Greetings, everyone, and welcome from the Technology Association of Georgia. This is Tech Talk, July 21st, 2015, and I'm your host, Frank Baia. Up to the Tech Talk, a workforce education, recruitment, and retention new normal that is driven by software development life cycles, the latest development languages, and disruptive technologies. We visit with a new recruitment firm that has quickly become Atlanta's go-to company in the startup technology space and for high-growth organizations. And we Tech Talk with Melissa Davis, founder of Elev8 Hire Solutions, a company she founded in 2012. Melissa had previously worked for one of Atlanta's premier information technology talent acquisition providers and a high-growth startup recruitment firm. She quickly acquired accolade after accolade, including the Employee of the Year in Operations and Top Employee of the Year award for the next consecutive 5 years. Her vision and thought leadership has created what she calls a hire solution, and an organization that has made a significant impact on the recruitment industry in Atlanta, already placing hundreds of top technical talents for Fortune 500 clients to a two-person startup. Not your traditional old-school job matchmaker wannabes. No, this is a next-generation boutique-style recruiting firm that provides not only technical talent, but also strategic consulting for clients on their hiring processes and procedures. From how you attract Generation X talent and the best practices for interviewing them, to how you can make sure you're securing the right person for the job, even insights for today's engineers' ever-changing workplace environment, including culture, leadership, and value-added perks. It's a Tech Talk on the future of recruitment from the talent perspective of a new company to the new company's strategy for attracting and hiring the right talent. We Tech Talk with innovator, thought leader, entrepreneur, and co-founder of Elev8 Hire Solutions, Melissa Davis. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Melissa, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thanks for having me.
You know, obviously we talk about every vertical there is in terms of the technology industry, and there are so many of them, but every one of them at their core is based on good talent, good capabilities of being able to continue to grow by attracting good talent. So having the opportunity to speak to an expert that's really, if you will, on the front lines of where the battle is being conducted as far as search is concerned, I think our listening audience is going to be really interested in a couple of your insights in particular, like, for example, from a recruitment standpoint, you know, obviously there's been a lot of talk about negative unemployment rate currently for technologies. Got any advice for helping companies find great talent?
Yes, it's been a challenge. It's a great thing because there's lots of demand out there, but there's definitely a little bit of a shortage of supply. So one of the things I often kind of coach my clients on is, first and foremost, capitalize on your network. I don't think people reach out to enough people that they know, and people love to be helpful in other people's searches. So, I think that's first and foremost. Reach out to mentors you've had, board, of directors on your team,
sure,
and other employees. And then really creating a great referral program, I think, will help it, incentivize your employees to get involved, to really dig deep into their networks. And then another great kind of forgotten place is when you interview a great candidate and they don't work out, having a great rapport with them and asking them, I know this one didn't work out here for you, but do you know anybody else that would? And kind of tapping into their resources.
That's interesting.
Would be a great, yeah.
What about, and this is a little off the subject, although obviously related, and that is there's a lot of talk about culture, and the culture that you create within the environment itself that helps to attract just almost by buzz or social media or word of mouth, hey, this is a great place to work. I would guess that part of going aggressively outreaching for new talent is one thing, but obviously if you don't really have a good, positive environment that attracts people, isn't going to necessarily contribute unless you've got that. Is that a case, or do you find that to be the case?
Absolutely. I think it's more important than ever before. Company branding is huge. You're seeing this kind of cross-parallel between marketing and recruiting efforts. So candidates are very tech-savvy. They're doing just as much homework on your brand, your company, as sort of you are doing on them on social media. So they're looking at things like your Twitter feeds or your company, website, or any kind of social outreach you have. They're considering that, and that really is shaping sort of what your culture looks like and what you're putting out there as a company. And it's actually very engaging. I find our candidates are making a lot of big decisions with regards to what they find.
It's kind of funny because the next question I'm going to talk about is the interview process, but in a way, the candidates are interviewing you in that regard as much as you're interviewing them. Once you've gone through the vetting situation of networking with the contacts that you're talking about, obviously doing a good branding and aggressive positioning in terms of a positive atmosphere and a positive understanding of the company and what it stands for, now you get down to the real tough part, I would guess, and that is not only bringing in potential interviewers, but is there a secret or is there a method to being sure that you're securing the right talent for the job?
Well, I do think there's a formula for it. So one of the things, with all companies, cultural fit is going to be huge. So I think you want to kind of address that from the very get-go. Before you even get into deep technical skills, hopefully people have come your way. You've got to understand they have the baseline for, skills. But especially if you're a smaller organization, I think it's really important to kind of hook the candidate excitement and interest from the get-go. So it's really up to you to kind of really sell your mission, your values, why you do what you do, and kind of offer to them that, this is an opportunity that's going to afford you more than just a paycheck. What the true opportunity is for the candidate, assessing their background, and kind of, cultural fit. A lot of times behavioral type interviewing is very powerful when it comes to that real, true cultural fit.
When you're talking about interviewing and you're talking about candidates, I guess it's naive to say it because you hear so much about it, but be careful what you put on your Facebook, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
A little bit too much information in some cases that can actually maybe damage the other side of it is that I'm fascinated by the fact that in many cases where the traditional CV or resume or background, what you've actually done in terms of experience is one thing, but the pure talent that you bring when it relates to a specific technology situation like programming or code or that kind of thing plays a strong part. Interpersonal relationships and those kind of skills, do they still matter?
Yeah, they definitely still matter. I think clients are looking for, when it comes to technologists, of course, what makes them who they are, and are they the type that goes home and codes, at nights or on the weekends, and what they do outside the actual working world, I think really kind of shapes who they are as a technologist. And you're finding, I find that you can have a more powerful interview when you dig into even more just their extracurricular activities. Versus, what they've previous a current job or a past job.
Now let's talk a little bit. Obviously you chose when you first founded and started the organization to focus on technology recruitment, and clearly over a short period of time you're getting a great reputation as being one of the more aggressive and really leading technology recruitment firms in the area. Give a little bit of insight about how you got started and what's your vision for the company.
Yeah, well, I got started. I worked at one of the larger firms and then left and worked for a small startup, helped build them for almost 5 years. I really enjoyed it. In both firms, I worked the whole gamut of IT. What I decided to do with Elev8 is very, niche focused. So we only focus on software and application side of the technology in sort of the most progressive cloud, mobile, data, security type roles. And what this has allowed us to do is continuously pipeline the right technologists, and we sort of dig a little deeper in each area. than most IT recruiters because you sort of do the whole gamut of IT. So, when I set off to do Elev8, I wanted something very niche focused and sort of more consultative, kind of that high-touch boutique style.
Now, I know that you were talking about, I often say here that if you're going to use technology, if you're going to sell technology, use technology. If you're going to be focused on the vertical with a special focus in recruiting not only technologies, but even more of an emphasis on the sensitivity of startups, that you're going to want to be in one of the hot spots of startups, and you've done that. Atlanta Tech Village, I guess, is probably, if not it's one of the hot locations right now for startups. Maybe a little bit about, has that made any impact on your organization as far as being located there?
Yeah, and I think it's more from just, being in the ecosystem of technology and technologists. We get to capitalize on all the different events they hold, lots of social engagements. A lot of our clients and candidates are in the building, so it's very unique to be able to constantly be surrounded by your clients and candidates, engaging with them. Of course, that helps, with referral-based
Sure.
and building that brand. But I do think being truly intimately involved in keeping up to date with all technology and technologists and what's sort of the movers and shakers has.
That's a tremendous insight. In other words, you're right involved and engaged in basically a microcosm for the bigger vision that you have for the company by being at the village. Well, let's talk a little bit. You mentioned the village, obviously, and the connection. I know that your focus is more on startup space as much as it is in anything, especially in Atlanta. A lot of buzz, a lot of conversation. You're kind of where the tire meets the road, to use an old cliche, but you're right there in the midst of it. Give our listeners a little bit of insight in terms of your thoughts of the evolution of the startup community in Atlanta.
Yeah, I think Atlanta's growing. I think we're finally starting to get some true traction when it comes to especially startups. I think we're the second largest, fastest growing startup community in the last decade over all the other high growth cities. And I think, for me, some of it you look at, we have the world's largest airport here, and that makes a huge difference when it comes to business. We have tons of universities in the area graduating thousands of students. And Georgia Tech being one of the thought leaders in technology is such a great resource for us to tap into.
Absolutely.
As we all know, living in Atlanta in the South is considerably a lot cheaper than some of our, competing cities such as New York, Boston, the Valley, etc. And we're also home to, Fortune 1000, Fortune 500 companies. I think we have over 30 headquarters here. And how that plays into the ecosystem for startups is they're actually the companies that are using the B2B technology solutions that all these startups are coming up with. So we have the resources, the funding for them, which is great. I think the barriers we have for the startup community in Atlanta has always been kind of that capital, being able to raise capital, and, everybody coming, all the other big companies coming and stealing our
Sure. Show me the money, and then they take you away.
That's right. Exactly. So trying to keep our talent here, which Georgia Tech has created a phenomenal incubator that really helps engage, the students early on, and we're trying to entice them to stay in the community here in Atlanta. I think Atlanta Tech has done a great, thing, and then Tech Labs coming up is going to be a huge push to keep the students here. So I think we're doing a great job with that.
Well, just from I don't know if there's an easy answer to this or not, but with the, it's either the market is up or the market's down, and entrepreneurs say you can do business in any one of those environments as long as things are changing. But I'm thinking in terms of it being so up and continually getting more growth exponentially. I'm talking about the entire employment arena. How do you position yourself in terms of, from a competitive standpoint, not only attracting good people or finding good people to place, but also being the consultant of choice, if you will, to companies that are looking for help? Do you proactively market the talent? Do you build relationships in advance and search, or a combination of both? Maybe give us some insight into that.
Yeah, that's sort of, it goes back to staying, for me and for Elev8, very niche focused. So what that means is a lot of our clients are like-minded and a lot of our candidates are like-minded, and they're kind of both doing the same thing. So we sort of capitalize on that relationship. So I don't strive to be the biggest staffing firm in town, but I do strive to be the best staffing firm in a given arena, which is, the small to mid-sized progressive companies with the progressive technologists. So that really is how we look to continue our growth in Atlanta.
One last thought, and I think our listeners, many of which are obviously entrepreneurs and business leaders looking for good help, but many of them are engineers and potential, I think, job applicants of one kind or another. Let's close with maybe your input in terms of what do today's engineers look for in a workplace environment? You've covered it a little bit, but maybe go a little deeper as we close into the culture, the leadership, and probably something that is even equally as important to everybody is those value-added perks. So maybe a little insight into that.
Yeah, I find time and time again, I think there's a number of things people really look for, but what we hear consistently across the board from our candidates is, they want autonomy to be able to grow and learn. They want, the responsibility to be accountable for particular things. They're looking for, opportunities that are going to afford them some leadership down the road. Flexible workspace, flex hours, telecommute is huge for for a lot of people these days, especially with the commutes in Atlanta. Open collaborative environments. I'm seeing it time and time, even with my larger clients. They're doing away with the big cube farms, and they're going to more, either shorter cubes or no cubes at all. That whole sense of collaboration is really a growing movement these days. And I think I think the most important thing what we're seeing is it's more of an emotional decision for candidates. They have so many options, so many opportunities out there, and I don't think it's money or location or even technology that's drawing them to the opportunity. I think it's the emotional attachment or what they're going to be working on or what the technology really, its purpose is, what it does is what's enticing people the most.
Change the world?
Yeah.
Well, I think so many cases, we mentioned early on in terms of the sort of the common thread, obviously, between all the verticals is computers, but the other common thread is talent. And I think that so much of what's happening now is disruption. It's a cliche to use the term, but it's happening in every vertical. And so there's so much change and so many activities that are going on that almost any startup, even from a private sector enterprise standpoint with a bottom line commercial capital motive, which is not a bad thing, obviously, is still purpose-driven because most of the time you're dealing, say, for example, in a health IT, for example, that may save somebody's life. So in the long run, purpose becomes a combination of passion and opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much. There's been a tremendous amount of buzz centering around Elev8, and to get an opportunity to grab you for a couple of minutes and to get a little insight into what you're doing and how you're going about doing it. Continued success, and we look forward to maybe checking in with you in a couple of months, a year or so, and find out how things are going. But for the moment, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for a few minutes today on Tech Talk.
Well, thank you for having me.